Morning, ladies and gentlemen. Morning, morning, everyone. If you can hear me, just tell me yes, or give me a thumbs up somewhere in your. Everybody can hear me, okay? Yes. Okay, awesome. So we're gonna go ahead and get started now. We are recording this session, and let me close out a couple things here real quick. And for those in Malaysia, we got a piece of news, yeah. A lot of areas going into EMCO, I think tomorrow.
Morning, Chris. I'm sorry I'm
Morning.
a little late.
No problem, David. Okay, so let me get the slide started right now. Okay, so today's topic is it's very interesting, and let me do this also. Okay. All right. So, today's topic is very interesting. The art and science of closing, like a seasoned sales professional or superstar, right? And let me ask you a question, and you can let me grab this as well. Uh, I'm gonna ask you a question, and then you just tell me yes or no, in the chat. Okay, yes or no. Closing. It's two questions. The first question is it hard to close or is it easy to close? Or let me rephrase the question because you cannot answer yes to that, right? So, is closing hard? That's Don't answer yet, okay? So, it's either yes or no. And the second question is, do you think that you would make more money if you learn how to close a little bit better, a little bit more professionally, a little bit more consistently, and a little bit more confidently? Okay. So the first part is closing difficult? The answer is yes or no. And would you be able to make more money if you closed a little bit better? So you can type in no no, yes yes, or yes no, or no yes. All right. So awesome. I see. Uh, Thank you, Jahan, for the yes yes. All right. Closing is very interesting. Uh, Closing, like I said, it's a very interesting topic, and regardless of how you feel about it, this is where it comes down to, right? What it comes down to is closing the deal. All right. And I want you to ask yourself, these couple questions. You don't need to answer it out loud. Just answer it in your head. Do you know when you should close, or the most effective statements, or the most effective techniques for you to use on the different kinds of people that you come across, the different kinds of situation, whether you're going to, I sometimes hesitate to use this. I'll use this phrase as like hard closing. Hard closing is not fighting, all right? I'll explain that in a little bit in our session today. So, do you do a hard close or a soft close? And when I say hard, like I said, it doesn't mean pressuring. Um, and then how do you close without sounding pushy or aggressive or desperate, right? So, I like your answer, Fu. Okay, closing's not hard. You're actually right. I'll explain also. Now, on this session, we'll be together for about an hour, and if you were to discover or learn professional closing techniques and strategies that you can use immediately to increase your closing ability, your closing ratio, and your closing confidence. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about together this morning. Yeah, David, buying signal. Okay, there's a way to engineer buying signals, right? Okay, so have
Yes,
you
most important is we be observant to listen.
correct? Okay, so um, especially now. Now this was even before. I've asked these questions, for many years, and these questions are more relevant today than any other point, except for when I was in the U.S. I was there during 9/11, okay. Except for that point, right? Um, and it's more relevant today because it's on a global scale, right? Uh, whatever you're selling, whatever your product or service is, have you ever experienced, oh, you know what? I don't know where my next client is coming from. I don't know where my next deal is. I have one or two clients, but I don't have enough, right? And then almost all of us on this session, we're all professionals in the sales industry, right? Regardless of whatever product or service you're selling. And maybe you tried reading, you tried studying, and then something just doesn't click. I'll share this with you as well. There's a lot of webinars and online trainings going on, and I usually attend from other companies. I usually attend between 2 and 4 or more a week, depending on my schedule. And I attended one a couple nights ago. It was very interesting. It really wasn't, talking about how to sell, as a profession. They were marketing a different product. But one of the things that they, in their package, which was overpriced, it was overpriced, and the amount of bonuses that came in was like, man, this is amazing, right? And of course, I'm being a little sarcastic, right? So they were selling this particular product, and they were selling a package which I said was overpriced, and one of the components in the package, it was like some kind of a 2-day program as usual, right? I think it was like 2,000 or 2,500. One of the components or the modules in the program they were selling is they were going to teach you how to have a 70% closing ratio. They're going to teach you how to present the offer. They're going to teach you how to handle the objections, right? Basic things, right? And so I waited till the end, and then the session ended. And I gotta tell you that this happens a lot, right? And so about an hour or an hour and a half later, I got a call, and they said, "Hey, Chris, do you want to join the program?" I said, let me think about it, but I'm not sure. Anybody want to guess what their answer was, or what the next stage was? Anybody wanna guess? You can unmute yourself and give your guess, or you can type it in the chat. What do you think they did next? What do you think? So they were trying to sell me the package for, I think it was 2,000 or 2,500. They gave me a call. Okay, I attended the whole session, and they said, "Do you want to join?" And I said, "I don't know. I'm not sure." What do you think they did next? No guesses. I'll tell you what they did next. You're right, Yati. They said, "Okay,
Chris,
thank
can I
you."
answer this?
Yes, go ahead, David.
Oh, okay. Normally in these situations where the client are unable to make up their mind, normally they
Right?
try to fish for more information. Because in the past, I had one challenge to sell a program, a customer service program to a to a private clinic, and they say
Ah,
that it's very hard for us to take a 1 day off to let our nurses to go for customer service.
right,
Then it comes to me is like it's not an objection, it's like a
right,
buying signal. Then
right.
I'll suggest to them that,
Absolutely.
all right, if that is the case, since 1 day, a full 1 day is hard to make it, then how about break it into 2 days, which is
Right,
two different days. For
right.
today, we run a half day session, 4 hours. Then the
Yeah,
following next week, we run another 4 hours to make up 1 day. And they
right,
are okay with it, then I secure the deal.
right. Exactly. And another way you could have done it is you could have done 4 half days or done 2 full days with half of them and half of them. You see, don't when they asked you that question or they told you I don't know if I can put all my nurses all in one day, do not answer like Yati. Yati is right. The answer that I got was okay, thanks. All right. You don't answer with they gave me an objection. Okay, thank you, goodbye. That's basically what they did. So how can you say that to me, trying to sell me the program, and in your presentation you said we're going to teach you how to have a 70% closing ratio, okay? When your question was, do you want to join the program? And that when the answer is no or maybe, and you respond with, okay, thank you. And this is the danger, ladies and gentlemen. All right, there's a disconnect between what people say and what people do. Okay, it's a very, very dangerous situation, especially now. If you don't know what to say, you cannot say it. And this is the reason why we created this series, and we made it free, so that we can pass on some of the techniques and pass on some of the skills. Now, we will sell something. I will let you know, but I'm not going to go into a half-hour presentation on what the product is. All right, and I've never done that. So what we want to do is we want to avoid being like this guy. This is an actor, Danny DeVito. It's actually a screenshot from a movie called Tin Men. Okay, and the movie is actually a sales movie. If you haven't watched it, try to find it on the internet or somewhere. It's called Tin Men. Okay, so their job was to go door to door to sell. It's called aluminum siding. It was very, very popular in the 80s and the 90s in the U.S. All right. So when they show up on the doorstep, imagine you're in your office or your home, and a salesperson like this shows up. And the truth is, most of the time we do, because we don't know the right things to say. We don't know how to position ourselves as an authority or a consultant. Okay, and when we don't do that, and we don't have our shit together, and we don't know what to say that's effective, that's confident, that's professional, we come across as being begging or needy for the deal, or we become pushy and salesy. This gives you low results. All right? It makes you ineffective. It makes you inefficient. It makes you have a lower income, and that's the bottom line, right? Because how many of us here, you can type me in the chat, ME, all right? How many of us here want to have a higher income? Just type me in the chat if that's what you want. Okay. I want higher income too. And one of the things that I tell myself is that I have to be better tomorrow than I am today. I have to be better next week than I am this week. I have to be better next month than I am this month. On our last session, last Friday, I think it was the 25th, I think, 25th of June, one of the things I mentioned is that the 1st of July is like 5, 6 days away. Well, today is the 2nd of July. The 1st of July is it's something psychological, but it's reality, because the 1st of July, yesterday, was the first day of the remaining 6 months of 2021. If your 2021, January to the 31st of May, sucked, then it's time to change. It's time to do something different. Because if what you were doing for the last 6 months was already working, you would already have achieved what you wanted this year. Valerie, getting trips for my truck units, getting to the truck service business. Okay, we'll have a conversation about this later. All right. Uh, you see, it doesn't matter what your product or service is. Of course, not 100%. You have to go to where the market is. And one of the things that I learned, Valerie, is that buyers will always be buying and sellers will always be selling. And what you have to do is you have to stand out from the crowd. All right? And we'll discuss a little bit of that, maybe on this session. Okay? Now, I want to make a few promises to you. I I sincerely, I sincerely respect your time and effort in being here with us, on this session. I believe I've spoken to most of you or some of you individually, um, and I think I am clear in that sincerity. I'm not just saying it. All right. Now, my first promise to you is that I won't waste your time. Okay. I will share relevant and valuable information on this session and actually on every session that I do. So you don't need to believe everything I say. You don't need to think I like and trust Chris. I will back up everything I share with you, and I think that's fair, right? Now, we're also recording this session, and we'll get it sent out to you within 24 hours as a YouTube link. That way you can replay, fast forward, and rewind the parts that you want to hear and watch again. And if there's any boring parts, you can skip over, right? Now, these sessions are not a pitch fest. There's no hard selling. I'm not going to get you to buy anything at an unreasonable or inflated price. Now, I may offer services or products and explain them, but no hard selling, all right? And I think this is fair as well. And I'd like to ask you a favor. You probably have questions or comments along the way. I think so far I've shown that, and if you've been on other sessions, I've shown that as well. I am monitoring the chat, and I do my best to answer it at that moment. And if I don't, I'll get to it at some point in our session together. So you'll probably have questions along the way. So you can either type your questions in the chat, or you can write them down, and you can ask me at the end of our session during the question and answer. All right? Now, when I asked the question earlier, is closing hard? Okay? And then the second part of the question was, if you got better at closing, could you close more deals? And to me, the answer is no, closing is not hard. Okay? And yes, you can make more money if you can close a little bit better. Now, closing is a skill, and because it's a skill, you can improve in this very easily. Hold on one sec. Let me just clear out something. Okay, so closing is a skill, and because it's a skill, you can improve in it. In fact, you can improve in it quite easily. And the reason I say that is because it's a skill, it has a structure, and if it has a structure, you can take that structure, apply it to your product and business, okay, and customize it to your character, your product and service, and you'll close. It's like do this, do this, do this, get this result, right? Anybody like to eat cake? Just like raise your hand or say yes. Who loves to eat cake? Who likes to eat cake? Fool, you like to eat cake. I can tell that by the way that you look. Okay, so let's say chocolate cake. Jahan loves cake also. All right. Okay, so I want you to think of like cake, the cake that you like to eat, right? And I want you to think of like if you were to make that cake. Let's say now I like chocolate cake. I love chocolate cake. Now I have to tell you that I haven't eaten cake in I think maybe about a year and a half. All right, but I love chocolate cake. All right, and if let's say I were to think of my favorite chocolate cake. And if I said, oh, you know what, I think I want to try and bake that chocolate cake for myself, okay? And then I think, okay, I think there's chocolate, I think there's eggs and flour, and then, I mean, the ingredients are all the same in any cake, isn't it? It's like flour, chocolate, or the flavoring straw, whatever it is, and then you have the eggs and the butter and the milk, and then you have the oven and you have all the mixing. Every cake has those ingredients and has that process, right? So think of this. Everything in your sales process is like baking a cake. It has steps, all right? It has ingredients. It has things that you do. Now, if let's say I want to duplicate that chocolate cake, and I think, oh, I like my favorite chocolate cake, and then I try to make it, and then I bake it, I pull it out of the oven, and I go, man, this looks different and it tastes different. It looks different and it tastes different because I was not following the recipe of my favorite chocolate cake. All right? Now, if I got the recipe, and the recipe told me, do this, do this, do this, and you get your favorite chocolate cake. So, everything that we do in our sales process and our sales skills is like baking a cake. It has the recipe, it has the ingredients, it has the steps, it has the tools or the equipment that you need, and everything must be done in the right order. And that's what we need. You see, if you don't have the recipe, you're not going to get that chocolate cake. If you don't have the steps and the skills in your selling process, you're not going to close enough deals. Your closing ratio will be low. What I found in about 23 years that I started my company in 1998. I've been selling since I was about 24, 25. All right. Everything that I do is based on steps and process. You cannot escape that. Okay. Now, let me ask you a question. You can type your answer in the chat, or you can raise your hand, unmute yourself, and then you can share your thoughts very quickly, maybe one or two sentences. Okay? So we agree that closing is important, right? But why is closing important? Anybody have thoughts on this? Why is closing important?
We need the sales for profit. Sales profit.
Okay, I accept that. Because nothing happens until you close the deal, isn't it, David? Right? I like that answer, Jahan. Without closing, there's no money, right? You see,
we are providing solutions. We are solving their
correct.
problems.
Right. So do we do this at the end? At the end of the conversation or at the end of the sales process? Anybody? Any?
Process,
Say again, David.
I would say that it's along the process.
Right, it's the whole process.
If
Okay.
you ask me, I would say that this along the process. Understand? Yeah, because as we can see that if let's say a salesperson who customers say, I want this, they just quote them the price, the product, and so on.
Right.
Then it makes them no difference because a better salesperson need to know that customer wanted this. Is it relevant for them? Is that will give them the solution or not? If it's
Right.
not right, then they have all the rights to advise them. Okay, you want
Correct.
this, you're going to end up like this. Why not we go for this? Something like that.
Right. Right. You said something very interesting. So that we have the right to advise them. Okay, that's a very, very interesting statement. When you have the right to advise your prospect to turn them into a client, that means you become an advisor and a consultant, not just a simple salesperson, right? And so, expanding on what David said, closing happens from the time that you say hello. Okay, George, you're somewhat right on that, but I believe that we need to know what's in the customer's minds from the very beginning. And to be able to do that, we need to ask questions, and we need to project confidence, and we need to qualify them. All right? This is your whole sales process. Now, closing is important. Actually, the whole sales process is important because anything that a prospect says or does can be an obstacle to a smooth closing. All right? If a barrier exists between their current situation or the problem they're facing and what they need to do in order to engage your services. In other words, it must be an explicit and clear signal that you can close the deal. If not, it's also clear and it's also a signal that you have more work to do in the selling process. All right? Nothing happens until you close the deal. That's why closing is important. Now, I think everyone knows soccer, right? I'm not sure, Ten, but I think you know. I call it soccer, but it's actually like football, right? I think you know football. And one of the analogies that I bring up is that your whole selling process is exactly like football. You know, you have the goalpost, you have the starting point, you have the ending point, right? Then you have all the opposing players on the field, okay, and that's your objections and the challenges, right? And you gotta bring the ball from one end to the other end and score a goal, right? I think we can all agree on that, okay? Let me ask you this question: which one is easier, selling or closing? Which one is easier? Yeah, George, you're right. Closing is easier. Okay? Ladies and gentlemen, type in, if you think that selling is easier, type in selling. If you think that closing is easier, type in closing. George, I agree. Yes, closing is easier. All right? Because closing, if you look at it as just a particular point, in your sales process, the selling part is the hardest part. Okay, and let's see. Somebody mentioned something here. Yeah, George. People are afraid to close. Do you know why? Do you know why people are afraid to close? Because they're guessing on whether the prospect will say yes or no. You see, if you set everything up right and you go through all the steps, closing is the easiest part. Is the easiest part in your sales process. Closing, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, closing is easy. If you've taken the right steps. Because all of your work is done in the beginning. Okay? I'm going to cover a couple things here. Yeah, George, no need to be afraid. And I'm gonna explain why also. All right. Now, these are the basic reasons why people don't buy from you. You know, the biggest thing is the trust factor. Okay, the trust factor, the rapport, the likability. Because if you don't have trust, they're not going to buy from you. Would you buy anything from someone you didn't trust? Right? Okay, the no time, the no money, the no need, the no urgency. You know, those are all things. In fact, the no trust. All of things are dealt with not when you close the deal. Okay, let's see, no trust. You're right. You're right, David. Okay, you know, all these things. You know, the reasons why they don't buy from you doesn't happen at when you close. It happens throughout your whole sales process. So your whole sales process needs to address no time, no money, no need, no urgency, no trust. So that when it comes time to close, it's easy. All right? Now, you have different kinds of buyers and we need to identify them. Basically, I'm not going to read through each one, but what I'll tell you is that each one has a different selling process and each one has a different closing technique or system or question. Let's see, Fu. You're right, Fu. Okay, you're absolutely right, and we all know this, but sometimes we don't know how to do it. Right? We don't know how. Okay, so we need to know the kinds of buyers that we face. Okay, someone with a needs buyer. A needs buyer is someone with an immediate need or a problem, right? And if you think about it, we all think that everybody buys on price, right? Do you all agree everybody buys on price? In fact, let me unshare my screen real quick. Let's see. And let me take a look at everybody, right? Okay, so anybody anybody thinks that we buy on price. Everybody buys on price. Okay, so price is very important. Okay, you don't need to answer it. Here's how I'll explain it. All right. Here's how I'll explain it. We all think that price is important. Yes, price is important. You're right, David. Not all the time. It depends on your need and your problem. Okay. I'll give you an example. We have Tesco. We have whatever grocery store, right? The grocery store, sells groceries. They sell batteries. They sell. Think about batteries. Let's say you have a list to buy groceries and you have batteries there, and then you look at the batteries. Oh, it's cheap, and then you buy a few, right? Let's say you need a battery now. You don't have time to go to the grocery store, okay? And we have this wonderful chain of convenience stores called 7-Eleven. Okay? Do you know how expensive batteries are at 7-Eleven? It's like if all they did was sell batteries, they would be a multi-billion-dollar company, right? Have you ever gone in and said, you know what, I need batteries, and then you don't care what the price is? You don't even look at the sticker. You just run into 7-Eleven and say, I need batteries, and then you get it. That's selling to the need. You see, 7-Eleven knows that everything, as far as I know, everything is more expensive at 7-Eleven, but they're still in business, right? This is what I mean. Let me get back to the the slides for us. Yeah, this is what I mean when I say, this is a needs buyer, an immediate problem or an immediate need. Then you have the bargain buyer. Okay, the bargain buyer is looking for a great deal. They're not looking for something cheap. Okay, because if you buy something for $1 and it doesn't work, it's a waste of money, right? They're looking for a great deal. And when we talk about bargain buyers, what we're looking at is they're actually asking for, something additional. Maybe you lower the price, right? Maybe you give something extra. Bargain buyers are actually looking for an irresistible offer. All right. Then you have the impulse buyer. Impulse buyer is like, yeah, I need this and I want it. Now these sometimes I'm a little bit afraid of. All right. Then we all come across the people that browse and shop and survey. I call this category the slow breathers. Okay, because they're a little slow in their decision making. Then you have the people that buy based on seasons or based on habit or based on it's more cyclical in nature. It's based on their need, their want, or desire. Okay. For example, I'm not sure what the stats are in Malaysia or Philippines, right? But in the U.S. And this is before 2020. We don't have stats on these yet. But before 2020, one of the depending on the state, depending on which state people are in, whether it's California, Texas, Arizona, whatever it is, in the property market, what they found is that the average buyer will buy a new house every 7 to 8 years. Okay, what that means is that if you for property for real estate professionals, if let's say you sold a house to someone this year, you can almost not guarantee, it would be a trend that they would buy another house in 7 years. So it makes sense to keep in touch with them. The average person in the U.S. in general buys a car every 3 years. All right, so we would keep in touch with them for 3 years so that when they think of buying another car, they would think of me. All right. So when you're in a habitual or seasonal kind of buying cycle, you need to hit them before the decision is made. Now, sometimes this is with when you're doing B2B, when you're doing selling to governments or agencies, you need to know their buying cycle. Okay. Now, I'm going to go through a few rules of closing. The number one rule of closing actually has nothing to do with closing. Okay. Now, I want you to think of this. Let's say your closing ratio. Just for the heck of it, let's say your closing ratio is 20%. Okay, and you tell yourself, I want to close more deals. I want to make more money. I need more income. I need to get more clients. Okay, you can get better in your selling process so that you can get your closing ratio up. But do you know what is the quickest way? The quickest way to get more deals. It's not really by closing them. Now, yes, you want to get better at closing as well. But I'll give you an example. Let's say your closing ratio is right about average, 20%, and you get 10 leads a month. When you have 10 leads a month, and your closing ratio is 20%, how many deals will you have that month? How many deals would you have that month? Just put your fingers up so I can see, or type the number in the chat. If you have 10 leads and your closing ratio is 20%, how many deals would you have that month? Yes, 2. Okay. How do you go from 2 to 4? You get better at closing. You get better at handling objections. Okay. You get better at qualifying. You get better at questioning. But the number one easiest way to go from 2 deals a month to 4 deals a month is to get better at generating leads. Okay? Let's say you generate 10 leads a month and your closing ratio is 20%, you close 2 deals. It's not that hard to increase the number of leads, to increase your lead generation activities. Okay? The reason it's not that hard is because your competitors are not really doing it. Okay? If you manage to increase your lead generation from 10 to 20 a month without changing anything else, using the same closing ratio, you would close 4 deals. Everything else remaining the same. So what would happen is that you doubled your income, you doubled the number of clients without increasing your closing ratio. Now, if you want to make more money, you have to attack it on all fronts. All right? You have to generate leads. You have to know how to make the introductory call. You need to know how to qualify them, how to question, how to ask questions, how to build rapport, how to be persuasive, how to do a proper presentation, how to handle their objections professionally, confidently, and efficiently, how to close, how to trial close, get into a real advisory conversation with them, and then how to follow up. Okay, you're right, fool. Okay, increase the number of meetings that you have. If all you did was increase the number of meetings that you have, your closing, not your closing ratio, but your closing numbers go up. Your deals go up. You see, it starts with your pipeline. Okay, and when I talk about pipeline, a lot of sales professionals, a lot of business owners, they have no idea what a pipeline is. Okay, it's like, hey, what's a pipeline? I'm not in the oil and gas industry. Okay, your pipeline is your sales process and how you track your leads in the sales process. And if you think about it, every prospect that you have, okay, is at some point in your sales process, whether they're in the initial phase or the appointment setting phase, or I haven't contacted them yet phase, or I already sent a presentation or proposal. They're checking with the board, they're checking with the wife, the husband. We need to do another in-depth discussion. I need to follow up. This is your sales process, which is your pipeline. You must have people at every stage of your pipeline. And it starts with filling your pipeline. You have to manage it, you have to monitor it, you have to qualify. And here's a phrase that I like. Okay? You must have an abundance. All right? And you're right, David, the law of large numbers. You must have an abundance. You see, the reason we cry over deals that we don't close is because we do not have an abundance of leads and people in our pipeline. And we focus on and we hope on one deal, one meeting, one client. And then when that one deal doesn't work out, it's like, shit, right? Here's the rule. If you don't have somebody to talk to, you don't have anybody to sell to. Okay? The number one rule of closing is have an abundance of leads. Because when you have an abundance of leads, I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, it solves a lot of problems. Most of the not all, okay? Most of the problems that we're all facing today, be honest with yourself. Can it be solved with money? Not all, but most of the problems and the stress that we have, I know it sounds bad, okay? But most of the problems and the stress that we have can be solved with money, right? And how do you get money? You get money from clients. You get money from clients, and it starts with generating leads. That's the number one rule of closing. And having lots of leads lowers your desperation. Okay. Next week we're having a premier training. I'm going to share with you on how to lower desperation. There's things that you can do. Okay. Very, very vital. Second rule of closing. Closing is for them. It's not for you. Okay? You see, they need to verbalize or they need to officially, okay? Let's see, David. Okay, very good. So they need to verbalize, they need to officially say yes. Okay? But here's the interesting thing. If you think about all the deals that you have closed, all right, they've already decided. They've already decided, I'm never going to buy from him. Or they've already decided, I am going to buy. I want you to think about this. Okay? I want you to think about this. Have you ever been in a situation where you were trying to buy something? Dollar value doesn't matter. You were trying to buy something, okay? And then you go, yeah, I think I want to buy this. I already know how much. I know how I'm going to use it. I want to buy it. And the salesperson just keeps on talking. Keep on talking. Because they don't know when to close, right? They keep on talking. And then you say to yourself, hey, can you shut up and just ask me to buy? Right? If you've ever been in that situation, okay, you probably have put people in that situation. So you got to know when to close, how to close, what to say, and what to do. Because there is no value to you or your company or your bank account until the close takes place. Okay? Number three rule of closing. Selling is not closing. Okay? Selling is the activities that you do that lead up to the close. However, you're right, David. However, you have to have closing components in the whole sales process. Think about this. Closing means getting them to say yes to something, right? We can call that call to action. Let's say closing can be as simple as, hey Chris, do you have a quick minute to have a 5-minute discussion? You're trying to close them on having a 5-minute discussion. Okay? Shall we set an appointment for next Tuesday on Zoom or on the phone next Tuesday at 10 o'clock? And you want them to say yes. You're closing them on setting the appointment with you. All right? So these are little closes throughout your whole selling process. Now, I want you to know also, this one's very interesting. Sometimes we call people, and then they don't answer one time, they don't answer your email one time, 2 times, they don't answer your WhatsApp one time, 2 times, 3 times, whatever it is, right? The harder a person is to get to, the easier it is to sell them. If your product or your service and your budget and they have a problem, if all that makes sense. The reason it's easier is because maybe they have a habit of not answering emails or not taking calls, or too hard to get through them. Many layers in the between the gatekeeper and reaching that particular decision maker. The harder it is to get to that person, okay, the more that you want to get to them. The reason is because all of us have competitors. Your competitors are doing the same thing. They're trying to WhatsApp, they're trying to email, they're trying to call, and if it's hard to get to that person, the rest of them will tend to give up. So what I'm telling you is that you don't give up. Next week in the training, I'm going to teach you how to be professionally persistent. Okay? I'm not going to teach you how to be a pain in the ass. I'm not going to teach you how to be harassing them. I'm going to teach you how to be professionally persistent. Okay? Number four rule of closing. I'll answer your question, Jahan, in the Q&A. Remind me to answer that question, because that's a question that I've gotten so many times over the last 2 decades. Okay, the harder is the easier. I know how, George, right? It's like we call it an oxymoron. It's like, does that make sense? I'm telling you, yes. Okay. When you attend next week's premier training, I'm gonna share so many examples of how this is extreme, where I followed up for 6 months, follow up for 8 months, follow up for 2 years, follow up for 4 years before I close the deal. Okay, of course I'm not closing the 4 years. I'm not closing a $10 deal, right? Here's the number 4 rule of closing. It's so simple. We all know what karma is, right? Karma is basically don't do to others what you don't want them to do to you. It can also be if I do this to them, somebody else will do to me, right? Does that make sense? I hope it makes sense. Okay. So with that in mind, if you don't want, we all don't like it, right? We all do not like it when our prospects give us excuses. They block us, or maybe lie is too strong a word. They don't tell us the whole truth. They delay payment. They're indecisive. They give fake objections. Okay? If you don't want your prospects to do that to you, don't do these things to others. Okay? In fact, I'll illustrate it this way. We've all tried to call prospects, correct? We've all tried to call prospects, and then they don't answer. It takes 2 days for them to answer a WhatsApp or an email. All right? If you've had any kind of interaction with me, you will know that I answer very, very quickly. The reason, and I do other things as well. I don't stall salespeople. I don't give them fake objections. I don't say yes today, no tomorrow, yes, no today, yes tomorrow. I don't do that, okay? Because I don't want others to do it to me. If others do it to me, then I have a right to get angry, all right? But if I do it to others and others do it to me, then I got no right to be angry, all right? And you have to build your business along these lines, because once you stop treating your business, your marketing and your selling like a joke, All right? We spend more on our furniture. Okay? We spend more on setting up an office, whether home office or in an office building. We spend more on those things than learning the skills that we need in order to generate income. Okay? What kind of BS is that? All right? I don't understand why we would spend more on all these things rather than getting your skills up, getting tools that will help you in closing more deals. Okay, so if you don't want people to do these things to you, don't do it to others. That makes sense, right? If any of you have had any kind of interaction with me, I answer extremely quickly. David, I'll just ask you a quick question. We've exchanged WhatsApp and phone calls a couple times over I would say the last 2 years or so, right? I'm just going to ask you this question.
Yes, first time was in Royal Damansara.
Right. Okay. I think that was like 3 years, 4 years ago, right? So,
2018.
right. I think your mic is a bit too close, David. A bit too close. The mic is a bit too close.
All right.
Okay. Okay. So I'll ask you
Okay.
this question. I'll ask you this question.
How about now?
Okay, a bit better.
Is
I'll
that
ask you
okay
this
now?
question. Yes, I'll ask you this question. When we met, okay, you said 4 years ago, and today, it's very hard to be consistent over 4 years, correct? I think we all agree to that. Now, I'll ask you this question. In my communication with you, and I believe I've answered extremely quickly in all our communication, but even 4 years ago,
Sorry, Chris.
yes,
Sorry, Chris.
ah, okay, I think we're losing David's connection. That's okay, David. I'll explain. All right, and then you can tell me later when your connection gets a little bit better whether I'm telling the truth. Okay, hopefully David comes back. All right. So 4 years ago and today, I answered David just as quickly 4 years ago as I did yesterday. Would you agree with that statement, David? You can type yes in the chat, or you can answer when your connection gets a bit better. All right? Okay, so what I'm trying to tell you is whatever I teach you, whatever I share with you are things that I do. I will not teach you something that I read about or somebody said, hey, this works, and then I just teach to you. I will always share real skills and real techniques with you that you can take and apply in your business and in your profession. Okay? Let's see. Now, the next rule of closing. When value exceeds price, people will buy. And I've illustrated this concept, okay? I've illustrated this concept. No problem, David, okay? We'll get your answer later because I'd like to know your answer as well, okay? When value exceeds price, people will buy. I've illustrated this, a couple times over the last, 6-7 weeks. All right. The value has to be here, and the perception of price has to be here. I'm not saying that your price has to be low. What I'm saying is that your value has to be higher than your price, and you hear this all the time. You hear gurus telling you, "Oh, you must sell value. You must sell value, and then people will buy." But they never tell you how to sell value. I've done that several times in the last 6 or 7 weeks, and I'm going to teach you exactly how to do that in the premier training session next week. But I'll talk about that a little later. All right. So what you should do is instead of selling on price, which we can, you need to sell on value. All right. I'll give you a quick example. Let's say somebody says, "Oh, it's expensive." Don't worry, I give you a discount with no commitment. The first thing out of your mouth is, "I'll give you a discount." Right? You need to stop that. Okay. Next rule of closing. Determine the steps a prospect takes before making a purchase. This one's very interesting. Uh, there's a technique. We don't have the time or the scope to go into detail on this one. But it's called. Hold on. Okay. Okay. David, if you can hear me, maybe we can get you to mute your audio. Okay. Just bear with me. Okay, thank you. Okay. So, okay. There's a concept called buyer fingerprints. Okay. Buyer fingerprints, uh, all it is determining what your prospect, what's the buying decisions that your prospect makes before before purchasing what you're selling. And how do you do that? That is a module by itself, and I will cover exactly that in next week's premier training, and I'll talk about that in a bit also. All right. But let me ask you this question: If you knew what was going through your prospect's head without guessing on what are the factors that go into making their buying decision, would that make a difference in your closing ratio? Would that make a difference in the way that you have conversations? Okay. Okay. Number 7. Here's the 1/3 rule of selling. Okay. We sometimes get disappointed when people tell us no, they're not going to buy. There's a basic rule in selling. I learned this over 20 years ago. All right. The basic rule of selling is 1/3. Okay. 1/3 is roughly 30%. Actually, it's 33%, but let's just call it 1/3 or 30%. All right. Out of all the people that you talk to, out of all the qualified people that you talk to, 30%, 1/3, will buy from you. They will buy from you if you follow a couple steps. All right. 1/3 or the another 30% might buy from you, depending on what you say or do. Depending on what you say or do, how skilled you are, how professional you are, how confident you are, how effective you are, how quickly you answer, how do you handle objections, how do you qualify them, how do you persuade them. 30% might buy from you depending on what you say or do. Another 30% will never buy from you. Okay? They don't have the money, they don't have the interest, they're locked in a contract, they don't have the budget right now, all those things. They don't like the way you look, they don't like the way you sound, they don't like your company, they just don't like you. All right? If we understand this basic rule of selling, all right, that 1/3 will buy from you, almost no matter what you say or do. All right? Another 1/3 will buy from you depending on what you say or do. And the last 1/3 will never buy from you no matter what you say or do. Okay, so what does this mean? What this means is, earlier when I used the example of a 20% closing ratio, if you have a 20% closing ratio, you are below average. I'm so sorry to tell you this. If your closing ratio is anything less than 30%, you are below average. Because the 1/3 rule of selling says that out of 100 qualified people that you talk to, 30 will buy from you. If your closing ratio is less than 30%, you are below average. Okay? And you need to realize that 30% of the people will not buy from you. If we can accept that, we will not feel depressed, we will not feel demotivated, we won't have stress, we won't worry, because we will know that some people will tell us no. Now, this is the difference between the average salesperson, the average entrepreneur, the average business owner, the average revenue generator, and a top tier professional. The difference is, George asked me that question in a while because I don't quite understand. All right. So ask me during the Q&A. Where was I? That middle 30% can go into the will buy from you, and they can go into the will not buy from you, depending on your skills, depending on how skilled you are, how professional, how effective you are. So average is like 30% and below. Professional is 30% and above. In fact, if you are a true sales professional, if you are a true sales professional, you are a professional revenue generator, following all these rules, having all these skills and more, that 30% closing ratio can turn into 35, 40, 45, 50, 60, 70%. Okay? Where you should be aiming for a 30 to 50% closing ratio. That's where you should aim. Okay? And if your closing ratio is anything less than 30%, you need to get better. You must get better. Okay? There are only 4 responses. There are only 4 responses when you ask the closing question. Yes, no, maybe, or I have a question. Those are the only 4 responses. Yes, I will buy. No, I will not. Maybe, let me think about it. Like David's example. Oh, I don't know if I can schedule out all my nurses to go training for one day. Right? Those are the only 4 responses. How do you respond to all 4? Or any of the 4? Okay? When someone says, yay, right? Even when somebody says yes, you have to solidify the deal. Because there's a term that professionals in the sales industry use. They call it an unwind. Do you know what's an unwind? An unwind means somebody says, yes, I will buy from you. And then when it comes time to pay, they disappear, they change their mind, objections come up, they don't know. We've all had this. Okay? This is called an unwind. So even if somebody says, yes, Chris, I will buy from you, what do you do and what do you say to cement the deal? Right? When somebody says no, do not respond with, okay, thank you. This is why I've had so many times when somebody's trying to sell me something, I give them one objection, and they go, okay, thank you, goodbye. Have you ever had a call from a salesperson and you're busy at that moment and you tell them, you know what, I'm in a meeting right now, I'm on a call me back in an hour, please call. And they never call. Have you ever done that? All right? People will buy from you when they like and they trust you. How do you get them to like and trust you? You build rapport. You show commonality. Liking and trusting, I covered this extensively in next week's training. Okay? Even if you're an unlikable person, you can get people to like and trust you. Okay? People will buy from you when value exceeds price. Not only will people buy from you when they see the benefit, but they see themselves using it. How do you get them to see the benefit and make them realize that I have this problem, Chris is the answer to my problem? How do you get them to see that? All right? You must have the mentality to close. I think Fu mentioned this, the right to close earlier, right? You must earn the right to close. And how you earn the right to close is that you show yourself as professional, confident, showing them the benefits, advising them, telling them how their problem will be eradicated when they buy from you. And if you've done all these things that I mentioned in the last 60 minutes or so, then you can dare to ask for the sale. Now, ask often and ask early. Does it mean, hi, my name is Chris, can we set an appointment? Do you want to buy from me? Okay? That's not what I mean. there's a way to ask these things so that you can, we call it taking the temperature. We want to take that temperature as early as possible because this is the part of the qualifying. Because we don't want to spend, 1 week, 1 month, or a couple months following up with someone that is not qualified. That's the wrong decision maker. How do you qualify? Right? And if you're a business owner, if you're a sales manager, if you're the founder, if you're a director, if you're a professional salesperson, if you're an agent, whatever it is, if your role is the revenue generator, it's your duty. It's your duty to sell professionally, effectively, and confidently, and it's your duty to close effectively, professionally, and confidently. So I'm going to give you some closing statements. These closing statements are rather magical, okay? But the work has to be done in the beginning before you can say these things. And some of you may heard these statements from me, okay? So I'm going to give you, I think I'm going to give you 3 or 4, I'm going to give you 3, maybe 4 closing statements that you can use today. The exact words that I use, I'm going to give them to you so that you can start using them today. Okay? But I have to tell you, they're not magic. The magic happens in the beginning when you do everything in the right steps, the right order, and then you can use these statements. Because remember, closing doesn't have to be hard. All right? I'm going to give you closing statement number 1. It's so simple. Are you ready to get started working together? This is the close. Okay? You don't say this at the beginning of the process. I got a message on LinkedIn today. It's one of those. It was on LinkedIn today. All right. It was one of those crappy intro messages, and it telegraphs BS. Let me see if I can find it on my phone, and then I'll just read it out to you. Okay. Let's see. Okay. This is what it said. Okay. I think I can see it. Okay. It starts this way. Hey Chris, I'd like to connect with you and see if we can work together. Then I'm thinking, yeah, that sounds interesting, right? Because working together means maybe I'll be able to leverage off of your effort and you can leverage off of mine and we can all make money, right? And then it would go, oh, how important would you say is upskilling for your employees? We will teach your employees, some kind of training program. I won't mention the company or who the person is. And if you're trying to sell me something, we're not working together, right? Because you said this phrase, you said it at the wrong point. You said it in the beginning. If you, like I said, remember the cake, the chocolate cake, this component, are you ready to get started working together, is in this message that I got from LinkedIn, from this, random person, right? That ingredient is in this message, but it's in the wrong sequence. You ask this at the end, okay? Why do you need to know more than one closing statement? Because what if they say, hang on, I have a question. And then you answer that question. Does that make sense? They say yes. Can you say again, are you ready to get started working with me? Then you sound like a parrot, right? Okay, so here's the next closing statement. All of these are so soft, or they seem soft, but I'm telling you they're strong. They're as strong as steel, all right? The next closing statement is da-da-da-da, whatever it is. When would you like me to start? All right? And you're not saying, are you going to buy from me? It's like, when would you like me to start? When do you want me to set up delivery? It's so simple. When would you like me to start? And then, they think for a second and they go, How's tomorrow? How's next week? I'm telling you, ladies and gentlemen, these questions are so simple, but so powerful. Okay. Closing statement number 3. You load the question. You load the question. Okay. And this is why we need to know the exact benefits of our product and service that applies to them. For example, if they say, "Oh, you know what? I need to save money. I need to," whatever the benefits are. Okay, this is how you load the question. If you were to get an extra 2 hours of productivity a week, and you're able to save 15% on your monthly operating costs, when would you like me to start? Okay, so it's called loading the question with benefit 1, benefit 2, benefit 3. You load the question so that they cannot say no. Okay, for example, if you were to lose 20 kilograms in 2 months, without excessive 8-hour exercise training programs, without taking unhealthy supplements, would you like me to start our fitness program, for example? And you can use it in any industry. Cecil, I think it was Cecil, right? You said something about trucking. You asked this question. A trucking company is a trucking company, or a trucking service is a trucking service. We need to go over what are the benefits that you bring that make you stand out from your competition, because there are people buying trucking. There are. That's why you start the company. Why would you start a company when nobody's buying trucking, right? So, and if you have competitors, that's great news, because when you have competitors, it shows that there is a demand. All right. Now, what do you do after you close? This is the even after they say yes. Somebody asked something. Okay, so this is what you do after they say yes. You just keep it simple. Okay. Hey, you know what? Thank you for giving me the trust and confidence. Welcome aboard. We welcome you into our XYZ company family. And you know what? You made an awesome decision. Okay. What you agreed to is this, and this. And what's going to happen next is we're going to do this, this, and this. And I want to let you know that I will be standing next to you every step of the way. I will answer every question that you have promptly, efficiently, and professionally. And we're going to get this done for you. All right? This is what you do after you close. Now, okay, there's a slight typo on this slide. It's not the final week of February. It's actually next week. Okay, we're doing the special sales mastery and excellence online training. It's 3 half days. It's next Tuesday, next Wednesday, next Thursday. All right. I say half days because I don't want to overwhelm you with everything all in one day. All right. It does take time away from my calendar. It does take time away from your calendar, but you're going to get it in chunks. We're going to go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's going to be from 9:30 a.m. in the morning to 1 p.m. Now, some people tell me, "Oh, you know what? I got kids in the school online." I understand. If by attending, this premier training next week, and your results went up, you got more leads, you were more confident in handling objections, you knew how to qualify them, and your closing ratio went up, would you want to attend? Right? And if you cannot attend for some reason, because we cannot physically be in 2 places at one time, if you cannot attend physically, you can watch the recording of these 3 half days. And I think that I hope that you would agree that I'm entertaining, engaging enough, and I explain things clearly so that even if you watch a recording of it, you can follow along. I hope I've been able to accomplish that. I want to share this with you. We had a client I may have mentioned this before. Their closing ratio, was pathetic. Their closing ratio was pathetic. 10%. 10% closing ratio. Okay? We trained the owner, we trained the sales team. Okay? We trained the owner and we trained the sales team. They went from a 10% closing ratio to about 75 to 80% in 3 weeks. Okay? We did a couple things. We taught them how to sell from A to Z, from the start to the finish. We gave them the exact recipe customized for their business. And they were able to go from 10% to 75, 81% in 3 weeks. The other thing that we did was we ramped up their lead generation to get the right kind of lead for them. Because for your closing ratio to shoot up, you have to be talking to the right people. You cannot just talk to some guy or clown walking, no offense to clowns. You cannot just talk to anybody on the street and hope to close them. You got to talk to the right people that are the buyers for your product and service, and if you can talk to the right buyers for your product and service, your closing ratio will go up. There's no question in my mind about that. All right, here's what we're going to cover next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. You can see these things. All right, I'm not going to read through each and every one of those to you. What I will cover on this slide is two things. I'll start with the top end, and then I'll start with the tail end. Okay, the mindset. You know what, ladies and gentlemen, excuse my language, our minds are all fucked, these few months. All right? And I know some of us find it so hard to pick up the phone and make the step and pick up the phone and call someone. Maybe we tried Facebook ads and we get no results. And then, we're getting drilled and depressed. And then we don't know where the next client is coming from. Right? I'm going to teach you, and this is, I promise you, is no exaggeration. I'm going to teach you how to have a champion mindset. And it's not a fake thing where it's like, come on, let's go. I don't believe in that. What I'm going to teach you is the champion mindset and the few things. It's so simple. The few things that you have to do in order to generate leads, talk to them, and sell them. And then the tail end is the follow-up strategies. Okay, we did a small module on follow-up a couple of weeks ago. All right, I will teach you how to follow up and follow up and follow up with your prospects that does not make you sound needy or begging or desperate. Okay, I will teach you how to follow up so that some of them will look forward to you following up with them. Okay? And this is the part that I call the professional persistence. I promise you, you will never lose a deal. You will never lose a deal because of professional persistence. Now, it's next Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, the 6th and the 7th and the 8th of July. Okay, it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, 9:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. And I promise you, I will share hundreds and hundreds of techniques and strategies and skills with you in those 3 half days. This session is free. The last 6 sessions were free. There was absolutely no charge. Okay? I think we already have about 20 or 22 participants. Okay? It didn't come from magic. It came from, inquiries. It came from me talking to people. It came from me selling to them. All right? They didn't just drop into my lap magically. One of the things that you will know is that whatever I teach you is whatever I do. All right? I would strongly encourage you from the bottom of my heart. I would strongly encourage you to make the decision and attend this training on the 6th and the 7th and the 8th of July. Okay? I'll just go through the price right now very quickly. Okay? You will hear that I said it's 75 USD. But what we did is we could, if you buy this from the link, it's 75 USD. Okay. Most of you, I think I sent out a message yesterday. For in ringgit, it would be 297. In pesos, it would be 3,000 pesos. All right. What I will do, here's what I will do. I'm going to call everybody that has attended, over the last 6 or 7 weeks. I'm going to call you, and I'm going to encourage you to attend. All right. If you tell me no, I'm not going to say okay, thanks. I'm gonna try my best and uncover why you cannot go, and I'm going to try to solve that obstacle for you. All I would ask is that if you miss my call, or I do not get a hold of you, I will call again. All right. Just don't ignore my call. That's all I ask. All right. Okay. Let's do this now. My final thought of the day. My final thought of the day. Sorry, not my final thought. My final thought on this session is that we need to learn how to shut up. Okay? When you ask a closing question, you need to shut up and let them answer. Silence is uncomfortable, but we need to learn how to shut up, because they might be processing the answer, they might be thinking it over, and they might not show it on their face, but they're thinking of something. Okay? When you ask a closing question, shut up. Let them answer. They might answer with a yes, they might answer with a no, they might answer with a maybe, they might answer with a question. Okay? I'll go into more detail on this. Let's do this now. Let's get into the Q&A, and I think I owe someone a couple answers. If you can remind me. Let me unshare my screen, and we'll get back to here. Let's see. Okay, so Jahan, I'll call you after 3 p.m. Let's see, 3, 4. I can call you at 4 p.m. Jahan. Okay, does that work? I have appointments at 1, 2, and 3, and I should be done before 4. Jahan, if 4 p.m. is okay, just let me know. George, I'm not being rude, yeah. George, you shut up until they answer. You are going to be sweating bullets because you know what's going on. Okay, awesome, Jahan. 4 p.m. You're going to be sweating bullets. There's an old saying in sales. Okay, the first person that talks loses. And this is very traditional, but it's based in basic human nature. You ask the question, and you just wait. I've done this on the phone, and I've done this in person. Okay. On the phone, I have a timer. This is before. I have a timer. I ask the closing question, and I'm sweating because it went to 2.5 minutes where I'm silent and the guy is silent, and I ask the question, and they're just silent, and I'm telling myself, I'm not going to say a word. And it went to about 2.5 minutes, slightly longer, and then he said, this is what he said. He said something like, okay, you know what? I can't take the silence anymore. And then we had a conversation after that. All right, and I ended up closing the deal. It was a hefty deal. All right. Even if somebody realizes what you're doing, okay, even if it advises, sorry, I was reading a question at the same time. Even if somebody realizes what you're doing, human nature, we cannot stand silence. Okay, George, you look at them. If you're on the phone, you don't have to look. If you're on Zoom, you just look at them. You just be normal. When you ask them for the question, when you ask the question and you keep silent, I'll actually go into detail on this in next week's training. But you look at them. Don't look at them in the eye. Just what I do is I look at this area, which looks like that I'm looking at them in their eyes, but I'm not. And that's how I'm able to do it for a long time. I will ask the question, and then I'll just. This is the face that I use. I'll just like imperceptibly nod if they can see me, because imperceptibly this nod gets them to see. Fool is nodding a little bit, watching me, right? It's human nature. Like you do this, and and that's what you do. Does that answer your question, George? Cecil, you had a question about the trucking, right? Let me just scroll back to that question for us. Let's see.
Sorry, Chris. I'm not the one who asked that
Oh, okay.
question.
Was it Valerie? Valerie, right?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
okay. So, you're getting difficulty in getting customers for your trucking. I'm assuming it's a transportation. Is that right?
Correct. Transportation.
Okay. So, do you do commercial or do you do like delivery consumers?
Both. We do
Okay.
consumer, and then we also do warehousing, and then we deliver to customers also.
Okay. We should have a conversation, Valerie. Valerie, if I recall, you use Viber, correct?
Yes, Viber. Yes.
Okay. Can I call you on Viber later?
Later will do. Yes.
Okay. What time is good for you?
Around
1 o'clock is okay?
1 o'clock Manila time. Yes, that's all right.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome. And ladies and gentlemen, that's how you set an appointment. Okay. This tells you that I do what I teach. George, Celine is on the call, right? Celine is here? No? Yes or no? Okay. I'm going to send this recording to Celine because your question. No, I'm just kidding, George. Okay, I'm going to let her know what you said. No, I'm just kidding, George. Okay. It doesn't, you see, to me, it doesn't matter what they look like. The reason that you say it will not be easy, and everybody will say that it's not easy, whether it's an extremely handsome, man in front of you, or an extremely sexy, beautiful lady in front of you, whatever your definition is. Okay, the reason that you say it's difficult is because you don't practice. All right, if you practice this, it doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter who it is. It doesn't matter what their position is. It doesn't matter what your product or service is. If you practice that, okay? If you practice that, you can do it. Does that make sense, ladies and gentlemen? Yes? No? Just tell me, just type in yes or raise your hand if that makes sense. Okay? I'm sorry, I switch on so fast. What do you mean? You mean the face? Is it, George? Is that what you mean? Because it's practice. I think that's what you mean. Okay. Do we have any other questions? Any other questions? I think we had one question. George, you had a question that I didn't quite understand earlier. Let me just check real quick, yeah? I think I lost that question. Let's see. Do you remember your question,
Chris.
George? Yes.
Yes, Chris. It's about the 30% closing rate. You are saying that it is a minimum. Because
Right.
I am wondering what ground you are actually base the calculation for. Because sometimes we do closing is not one-on-one. It
Right.
might be some situation whereby we do one to many or
Right.
many to many. So how
Right.
to say that? I wonder lah. I mean, is it in the whole sales process? After that, you look back and then you say, oh, not bad. It is 30%. I know 30% is the industrial standard, but anything
Right.
less, like what you say, is not
Okay.
good.
Uh,
But what is your base on that? How to
Okay.
measure? I mean,
Okay. How to measure? You mean
yeah, it's
what?
either 30%, that 30%, yeah.
Okay. This is how I measure it. All right. Having trained sales people over 20 years, what we found based on the companies that we train, and by the salespeople, yeah, not sales professionals, the salespeople's current numbers, we find that most of them will fall in the 25% range and lower. Okay, I learned this concept from one of my mentors about 24 or 25 years ago. He's actually a psychologist, all right? And as a psychologist, he's trained as a psychologist, but he's not a psychologist, all right? Jahan, I'll answer that question in a minute. So, his specialty was industrial sales. And I don't mean like selling equipment and things like that. What I mean is that, he is an industrial sales psychologist. What it means is that he looks at the sales profession and he does analysis. So he did this over about 20 or 25 years. He became a mentor of mine. One of the first things he taught me was the 1/3 rule of selling. Now, he taught me this, and I'm telling you this for two reasons. Actually, a few reasons. The first is, whatever your closing ratio is, I'm telling you it can go up. The second is that do not beat yourself up if people tell you no. Because if you put in your best effort, you use all your skills and techniques, and they tell you no, they were never going to buy from you anyway. Okay? And every one of us have had a situation where you pitch someone, you present to them, and then they say no. You try to overcome it, they still say no. You walk away, and then you go, I should have said this, I should have done that, and then maybe I can close the deal. You see, you say that after the fact, but why not take it and put it during your interaction with them? Okay, so having said that, the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3 has no basis in scientific research or study. And the reason that you ask this question is because you're probably an engineer or accountant or something to that effect by training. Am I correct? Yes, no? George?
Yeah, you know me.
Okay.
Engineer.
Okay. So, an engineering mind would ask that question. And that's why I answer you that way. Okay? So, like I said, the 1/3, 1/3, 1/3, it needs to go. Yes, Fu, I agree with you. I'll come to that in a minute, all right? We need to understand that we need to look at our closing ratio. And you see, if you don't know what your closing ratio is down to a single digit, then how do you improve? Okay? How do you improve? If you're honest with yourself, you will say that my closing ratio is 20% or my closing ratio is 30%. I will tell you this. My closing ratio, and we sell different products and services, not just training and things like that, yeah? My closing ratio goes as low as 35% to as high as 85%, personally, depending on the product and the service. So you're right, Fu. It doesn't mean that my closing ratio is 80% in this product and service is going to be 80% here. It depends on the cycle. It depends on the type of business, the type of product that we're dealing with. Okay. What we have to do is we have to be honest with ourselves and say my closing ratio is 20%. Can it be more? If the answer is no, then don't attend any more trainings. Right? If the answer is yes, find out where. I'm not saying you, Yafu. If you tell yourself my closing ratio can be higher, then find out where you're lacking and improve on that. Very interesting, Fu. You said the property launch. Okay, I'll cover this very quickly. All right. Something similar to that would be in the U.S. where I started my first sales job selling cars. And people would come on and they would say, just looking, right? And I was always like, what do you mean just looking? Okay, we sell cars here. We don't sell milk and all those things. We only sell cars. people don't just go and look at cars. Okay? People go and look at cars to survey, to shop, to test drive, and to see if they like what they're going to buy. All right? Same thing for property. Now, you are going to have a percentage of people that will just go and so-called look and see. All right? So what you have to do is you have to qualify them very, very quickly so that you know if you're going to spend time with them at that moment or just follow up with them. Okay? I disagree with property line. It's only 10% because I have clients that are doing 28 to 33% closing ratio. Okay? Let me put it this way. If let's say you're in the property line and your closing ratio is 10%, in Klang Valley, KL Selangor, in Klang Valley, if I recall, there are about 300,000 plus, maybe less now, 300,000 plus licensed and unlicensed real estate negotiators. Okay? There are people at the top of the game that are making millions, and there are people at the bottom scraping by and earning peanuts. All right? A 10% closing ratio is average in the real estate industry in any country. What I can tell you is that my clients are doing in excess of 28% closing ratio. All right? Jahan, your question, people fear to commit. People fear to commit because you didn't establish the value. If you establish the value, all right, if you establish the value, people will buy or at least commit. All right? Does that make sense, Jahan? Yeah? Okay. Fu, did I kind of answer your question? So, and if your industry is a little bit special, if your industry or product or service is a little bit special, where if you think 30% is too high, that's perfectly fine. The question you want to ask yourself is it good? Can I get it higher? That's the question. That's the only question that we really need to ask ourselves. If you say that my closing ratio can be higher, how do we do it? Right? Okay, so do we have any other questions? While you're thinking of other questions, if I can ask you a favor, if you can put your video on, I would love to take a picture of all of us. Okay? David's kind of frozen there. Let's see, that looks like nirabos and toast and eggs in your background. Okay. Yati, Ash, if you can put your video on, that'd be awesome. Dorothy as well. I can take a quick picture. Oh, you look very handsome today, George. You look very handsome today. Oh, wait, my camera is like a little blur. Sorry. No, I'm just kidding, George. Okay, I'm going to take a picture on the count of three. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And if we can give a great, big, wonderful smile like Dorothy and Valerie, that'd be awesome. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. And then 10, you look serious today. Let's give a smile. I know that you've been tired this week. Let's give a great big smile, 10. Let's try to match 10's smile. On the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Fu. Yeah, okay. I hear that. Let's do this, Fu. Why don't you explain, why don't you unmute yourself and explain? Okay?
Can you hear?
Yes, I can hear.
Yeah. So
I love this debate.
This is a common norms that people just because
Right.
models launch. They want to be in the know, so they just go there and see so that they can tell the friend and boast about it. Oh, I've seen this model.
I hear that.
So,
I hear that.
so
Okay.
Those that to just take a look.
Okay, George, take care. I hear that. Okay, so let me answer it this way, because this was my first sales job, selling cars. Okay, when we do a launch, we want people to come. We want people to come for a few reasons. In fact, in the U.S., this is what we did. Even when there's no launch, on the weekends, we would have clowns, we would have barbecue, we would have balloons. We spend 1.5 hours before our shift to make those freaking balloons so we can tie it on cars. Okay? Because we wanted people to come. We know that there's going to be a percentage of, we call it looky-loos, tire kickers. That's what we call them. Okay? And you're right, it's true in every country. If a new car model is launched, many will come and look-see. So why does the car company still do a launch and invite everybody to come? Why? Okay? The reason is very simple. We need the bodies to come so we can separate out who's a buyer or who's a potential buyer and who's a tire kicker. That's the only reason they do that, to create the buzz. The reason salespeople say that, hey, they're just curious and no interest, okay, is because they don't know how to talk to these people. They don't know. Okay, thank you, Valerie. They don't know how to talk, okay? And every person that comes to look at a car on a launch will say, I'm just looking, I'm not interested. Everybody will say that. But how are car companies able to exist if everybody says that? It means some, excuse my language, some of them that say that they're only looking and not going to buy are lying. Some of them are. And lying may be too strong. Lying, like I said, is too strong. They're just afraid to even commit to, yeah, actually I have some interest. Nobody's going to say that. Everybody starts with no. And that's why we got to know how to approach them. I learned how to do that very quickly when I was selling cars, because everybody says, I'm just looking. I'm just looking. And when I heard I'm just looking, I felt down. I felt depressed. Next week, I'm going to teach you, well, not you, but I'm going to teach everybody how to overcome that, how to determine in the first 3 minutes if they're a possible buyer or they're just wasting your time. I'll teach you how to do that. Sorry, not you, Fu, but I'll teach everybody how to do that. Okay? So, the reason the salespeople don't like these launches is because they're not trained on how to handle the people coming in. When I was selling cars, we have something called a tent sale. Okay, a tent sale. All it was on the whole dealership. Yeah, it even became as little as 2 tents. Like those canopy tents. Okay, the perception was that when we have a tent sale, we have new models coming in. There's free food. Of course, there's people only coming for the free food. When I left the dealership, I looked for tent sales so I could go and eat the free food every weekend. All right? So we need to be trained in how to handle this influx of people. Because, you see, even though we perceive that it doesn't work, it does work. Because that's why the car companies still do it. Every car company does it. If it didn't work, they would stop doing it. Because even if one company was doing it, and one CEO or chairman was saying, yeah, we got to do this, and it wasn't working, nobody else would do it. Does that make sense, Fu? So to answer your question, we want to have the people come in because that gives us the volume. And remember, lots of leads solve lots of problems, not lots of people. Okay? So we need to be able to qualify very, very quickly the people that we meet, because that will save us time. Does that kind of answer your question, Fu? Yeah? Okay. Okay. So do we have any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? No? Okay. Yati, I'll talk to you later this afternoon. Jahan, I'll talk to you later this afternoon. Ten, I'll message you tomorrow morning on a time that we can have our discussion. Okay. And other than that, ladies and gentlemen, there's a few things going on in Malaysia. over the I think starting tomorrow. So I want to wish everyone, to stay safe. Yes, Fu, you're right. Everybody stay safe. My thoughts with you. The only thing that I can do is, the only thing that I can do for you is assist you in getting better sales results. I cannot do anything else. All right. And so I want everyone to have the blessings of staying safe. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. And blessings for all of us. And I will see y'all at some point next week or in the future. All right. So take care. Thank you very much. Thank you, Fu. Thank you.
You, man. Tomorrow, what time you are getting back to me?
I'll message you tomorrow morning, and then we'll agree on a time. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Awesome.